Hello everyone, today we're going to be building a Clik 21 from RC Factory. First thing we need to do is get out all of our control surfaces, fold them over, put some weight onto them. I use some batteries because we all fly planes. We've all got some batteries laying around. So I weighed about an hour on this. That way they're nice and folded over and they'll be loose when you go to use them. Then I'm going to start on the wings, connecting them to the fuselage. I'm using foam tack glue. They recommend foam tack or medium CA and kicker for this. I really like the way that foam tack works with the glue to glue. You kind of glue it together and push it a little bit, squeeze it in, and it tightens up as you continue to squeeze it over time. Then I'm getting out all my carbon rods. These are the spars and the supports for the fuselage. So the first one that I'm going to be doing is the one that's across the front of the wing. They say to find the middle of it, which is at 34 centimeters. I marked it with a pencil, lined it up, and here is where I probably made my first mistake of the build. So I probably should have gone with foam tack on this piece, but I tried it with the kicker and then loaded up a bunch of medium CA on it, and then I couldn't touch it because it had glue all over it. So then I tried to make it work. I struggled and struggled on this. Probably used a little more glue than I should have. It worked, but if I were to do it again, I'd definitely use the foam tack because it's a lot more forgiving. You can push it on and then like continue to push it back into place until it goes where it is. But I got it there, cleaned it up, looked at the other side. There's a few holes here and there that I'll have to fill in and just snugged it up against it. So the next is the wing spar. And I had a little bit of a problem with this. It wouldn't go all the way in. I could have opened it up a little bit more with an X-Acto blade, but I was able to get it in there. And again, on this one, I went with thin CA. I'm just mixing it up, you know? I'm just using all the glues we got. I should have gone with foam tack. I like the foam tack better. The next build that I have, it's gonna be nearly all foam tack. The problem with the thin CA is that it does leak through the EPP and can cause some problems. Next, we're gonna be installing the wing extensions that hold the side force generators, and we just glue those over the top of the front carbon wing strip. Then I'm gonna do the spar on the elevator. Set that aside. Hold everything down so it dries straight. And then I'm gonna be working on attaching the elevator. And I'm measuring from tip to tip to try and make sure that I'm getting it right. I did all the measuring. Got the glue onto it, double checked it, did it again. Next, we're gonna flip it over and put on the fuselage spars. I clipped those to length because they were just a little bit long. And here you'll notice I ran into a problem. There was a needlepoint tip that was on my tube of foam tack. The problem is I wasn't able to close it after that, and I had another tube handy, but it also didn't have a little applicator tip, so I just had to go for it. So I'm putting in the spars, laying it flat, getting them set, and next thing, while that's drying, I'm gonna get the electronics set up. So I pull everything out of the package and make sure my servos are going to be working, my motors go in the correct direction, everything like that. This is where I also do my servo centering. Now I know you're like, hey, I got this cool servo centering device. I got 5 of them, but don't use them, they're trash. Seriously, don't use them. It's much better to set up a new model in your transmitter, make sure everything's zeroed out there. That way, there's no surprises when you put it in. I've never had the servo centering things be accurate, actually. Next, I'm going to be doing the supports that go onto the ailerons. So they have a little standoff on them, and then they get some supports. I also put on the front of the plane. It's not like there's a bow. It's not like a boat. I wonder why they don't call it a bow. So doing these supports, I used an X-Acto blade and kind of sawed through it a little bit and just bent them and then glued them all in place. I don't know that that's better than any other way, but it makes it so you only have to measure it from the one side and then trim it from the other. That seemed to work pretty well. Got those held down. Make sure you got some good pliers that have a nice sharp clipper on them. You could probably also use some clippers of some sort. Now I'm going to work on the control horns and the strips. They call them carbon strips for the ailerons. Make sure you get glue on both sides of your control horns, because if you only get glue on the one side, then bad things happen. Ask me how I know. The manual that I'm using a little bit of the Twisted Hobbies manual, using a little bit of the RC Factory manual, and using a little bit of the RC Group's photos and write-up. Next, I'm putting on the bottom of the fuselage, and I have to get the servo in there before I do that. And I'm getting that set so it's nice and straight, putting glue all the way along the bottom, lining it up to figure out where glue should be and where it shouldn't. Once we get it set, we're going to find a little white half moon that the bottom supports intersect with. So I got my supports there, cut out those little half moons, glue them in place, and then get the wing supported. Pretty straightforward. Trying to keep it all centered, trying to keep everything straight, level, 90 degrees. So I'm holding it down, keeping it flat. So here I started working on all of the supports that are on the underside of the fuselage. I started measuring at the measuring tape, but then realized that I should probably just use this digital caliper. I was able to get all of them cut as per the manual. I only had to trim a couple of them, but it makes it pretty straightforward. First, I dry fit everything. Then I'll come back and glue each one. This is my first plane that has these type of supports. That one there on the tail section is a little wonky, so I had to do some adjustment on it. So I glued those in place. I hit it with some kicker later on. I did these top ones with the foam tack because you can actually put it on there and it doesn't leak all over the place. So more adjustment on that part. Keep looking down the entire length of it, trying to make sure it's nice and straight. I think I got it there. Hit it with the kicker. And then here's where I ran into another problem. But I didn't know it till later. So when I flipped it over, you'll notice that medium CA went right through the EPP onto the table and stuck it to the table. When I tried to pull it off, it wouldn't budge, so I had to scrape it off and scraped off some of the graphics. So I'll have that reminder to think about what I've done. Also, I wasn't able to get the video from where I put together the wheels. I think that I lost it somewhere. So now I'm working on the servo for the ailerons, and I first screwed it together and then realized that I had to take it apart because the thing has to go on the bottom, the extender. So glued that together, screwed it together, glued it again. It's not going anywhere. Then I'm working on these stupid end links. They're teeny tiny, they're terrible. Trying to get these on is just such a battle. So the problem with it is that you can't really hold it with pliers very well. Sorry, this is out of frame, but I tried to push those through. Finally figured out a method to work where you sort of set the, yeah, they're a pain. Okay, measuring out a couple more pieces for up in the front. I've got my aileron servo through. This aileron servo has a crescent shape to it, and that faces the front of the plane for differential. You don't want it facing the back. That'll cause all sorts of problems. So you'll notice I did put together the wheel pants, the wheels, and the landing gear. I don't know what happened to that footage. And now I'm making the push rods for the ailerons, and then we're going to work on the top of the fuselage. This piece needs to come together and get glued, and I like that to have a nice solid connection because that's how I try and grab the plane when I'm hovering in the air. Get it all fit, see if there's anything that needs to get trimmed, then get some glue onto it and start squishing it together. So this was harder to get together than I anticipated. I almost forgot to put that servo in there. But as you squish it together, the glue gets tackier and tackier, but it's also hard to squish it just because it's such a tall profile. So I was kind of struggling with getting them all the way together, but in the end I was able to get them to fit close enough at 90 degrees. Now I'm working on the rudder. It has a carbon fiber strip, another control horn. Again, get glue on both sides of that. Once you make that though, then you can't really lay it flat anymore on the one side. So getting the tail section of the plane and the rudder glued on. Sorry, this is out of frame. Wish I would have pushed it forward just a little bit, but it was so hard to push together and have it in the frame. I need like 3 more camera angles. Then there's the vertical carbon fiber strips. I knew these were going to be a little bit of an issue because there's already glue in that area that you got to clear out as you fish it through, but I got it on there. And then the thing that I like about that foam tack is you get the glue on and you push it together, and then you can come back in a few minutes and push it together again, and it tightens it even more each time. Whereas with the CA, you kind of get what you get from the beginning. You push it together and that's it. But the foam tack gives you another chance in a few minutes. So getting all those servo wires run on the left side of the plane there. Now we're working on the push rods for the elevator and the rudder. I like to put these on first because I had a bad experience one time where I ruined one of them. Got the motor mount onto there. And now with these push rod end links, I'm trying to get them together. You glue it and then you have some shrink wrap that goes over it. I think I break out the heat gun right there. Just a little bit of heat to get it on. The glue really does it for you. That's the aft control horn on the elevator. And I'm running that rod and getting all those guides pushed in. It's kind of tough to see where the guides go in, but as long as you have it set, it's usually not too big a deal to figure out where they are. They're all about the same space apart, so got that one done for the elevator. Now working on the one for the rudder. Trying to get those things pushed in together is it requires like a teeny tiny person with teeny tiny pliers. But there's no slop in those at all. Oh no, more of these teeny tiny end links. So I kind of open up the pliers a little bit and push them like down through it. I just struggle. Maybe somebody's got a better method for them, but got the end links on the servo horns. Got the servo horns put onto there. Got the push rods through. With those end links, they have a flat head screwdriver on them rather than a Phillips. I don't know why. So those end links are... I hate the end links. That being said, they are nice and adjustable, but got to be a different way. Okay, so these are the final two. I think these are number 8 and 9 in the manual. The final two supports. Obviously, we couldn't have put those on before because we only were doing the supports on the bottom end. And these, I struggled with this, trying to make it straight because keeping it straight, you can't use your 90 degree because your push rods are in the way. So you just got to eyeball it the best you can and sight down it. Next, I'm gluing the cantalizer onto the fuselage. It's got a little support there. Again, keeping everything straight, level. Now working on the side force generators. On these, there's a smaller one and a bigger one. The smaller one goes towards the inside. Bigger one goes towards the outside. I messed it up. I had to switch it around. Do those on both sides, obviously. And I just barely tacked those on. I didn't use a whole lot of glue because I'm trying to keep it light. Now I'm putting on the trailing edge fences and the air brakes after that. I really like the look that these provide, the dark edge on them. So the air brakes have a bunch of little pieces to poke out of there. Also, any of the scrap that I have, I found that when you have issues with your EPP, you never have any scrap. So I'm trying to save some scrap here and there from this build, so that way if I need to do repairs, I'll have it. On the air brakes, notice there's one hole versus 2 holes. The side piece with one hole goes towards the outside of the plane. And you'll notice that I messed mine up because I didn't realize that there was cutouts in the wing until later. And so I cut them wrong. I should have just made a slit, knocked out the holes in the wing, brought them together, but I don't think it'll have an issue with performance. Then installing my aileron push rods. Again, those stupid links. Yeah, that one's getting me for sure. Don't worry, there's another one. By the time you get done with all of them, you kind of got how to do it, and then you forget by the time you're building your next plane. So, put my electronics on now. I tried to figure out which side I wanted the electronics on. Decided to put them on the left side of the plane as we're looking at it, and then put the battery on the upper right. I'm using a little bit of foam tape to affix it. And you'll also notice I took the case off of the receiver there because, it's all about saving weight. That'll save me 1/10 of a gram. Put a little bit of foam tape on there. I left it kind of a mess. I'll probably go back and take out some of the wiring and connectors and lighten it up a little bit. You'll see I'm trying to use a extension, a JST to XT30 extension. I'll either change my batteries over to the JST connection or the ESC to XT30. Radio connects, everything goes the correct direction. Now I'm putting on my prop and my prop saver, and I don't have one of those fancy prop saving installer tools, so I just use a screwdriver and then got some loop side Velcro onto the plane. If you don't do loop side Velcro on your plane, then you're doing it wrong. I'm just kidding, everybody does it different. But this completes the build. I'm really happy with how it turned out. This is my first superlight plane, and it felt like it wasn't quite finished because usually I'm used to the heavier EPP planes that feel a little more substantial. I'm going to post a link to the maiden flight so you can see how that went. And I overall really enjoyed the build. I hope this helps you a little bit. I hope it saves you from making the same mistakes that I did. And I hope you enjoy building yours.